Eat out to help out, or drink up and sling your rook before you cough on me. Which one is it, Boris? I see this absolute abomination yesterday as it was all happening, but I didn't have time to cover it then, and it's probably a good thing I didn't. A hot-headed take is never a good idea, but I've had time to think about it overnight, and Boris Johnson is still getting both barrels the toss pot. Now, some of you may not like what I'm going to say here, which is part of life, unfortunately. I don't like seeing the British public have their freedoms taken away from them for any reason, so it swings in roundabouts, don't it? Like me, you're just gonna have to suck it up. But I will say right now, this prat has won Shitweasel of the Week, hands down, without question. We all supported this absolute wet fart in breaking the deadlock on Brexit, and the country backed him to take back control on a Conservative manifesto based on freedom, the rule of law, and all those great sound bites. You know, the same old tripe they pump out every few years to get some votes claiming to be conservative, when by the looks of it, Joe Biden is more conservative than this lot, and he don't even know his arsehole from his ear-roll. A bit like Nancy Pelosi the other day when she did this.
That we lost Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
But to be clear, you're not taking any arrows out of your quiver. You're not ruling anything out.
Good morning. Sunday morning. We have a responsibility. We take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Old Skeletor Pelosi there is how I saw Boris Johnson yesterday coming out with this absolute horseshit we was forced to listen to, and the weak pussyfooting questions from MPs on all sides. The odd one or two tried to remind Boris what he had claimed to stand for all these years, and how he is trampling all over that with his current course of actions that are completely out of character according to those who know him, and is making me see him as a Neville Chamberlain figure and not the Winston Churchill he wishes he was. Churchill said, "We will fight them on the beaches, we will fight them on the landing grounds, in the hills, and on the streets. We will never fucking surrender." Boris in 2020 said, "The British people love freedom too much. They don't listen to our guidelines, so now we are going to spend 6 months blaming them for us destroying their freedoms." Based, of course, on guesswork and the opinions of experts who only appear to be experts in getting it wrong. All while the Tories let Marxist race-baiting organisations scream about how terrible the country is for months with full-on media support, and the Tories never blaming them once for spreading anything. But beach-going, working-class Brits were the devil, happy to kill all the old people, according to Boris Johnson, his party, and the media. Of course, none of that ever happened, but the point still stands. We also have to remember that during the whole lockdown and after, the borders have been wide open, with millions entering by plane in that period. And of course, the boat wanker invasion the Tories are happy to let continue. Just yesterday, both active patriot and the little veteran were arrested, exposing this utter shit show to the public, while Boris Johnson is likely preparing to lock us in our homes again. Now, the excuses Boris Johnson gave for a lot of what he said yesterday was absolutely ridiculous, and just made him look like a puppet spouting what he had been told to say that actually made no sense. So let's look at a few of the things that he has actually done in relation to these new restrictions. Obviously, we have the closing pubs at 10 PM because I guess the virus goes militant at 10:01, but is no more than a pussycat beforehand. Or as this meme embodies perfectly, the Rona before and after 10 PM. It is just lunacy and not based on any real evidence. Now, there have been studies done that show the disease is more active at night time, but that was in mice who are nocturnal animals, and mice cells are not the same as humans. But from my understanding of reading the research that this appears to be based on, it actually shows you are more likely to catch a viral infection after 10 hours of being awake rather than 10 hours after midday. And it actually states that shift workers are particularly at risk from viral infections due to body clocks being all over the place. So 10 PM is, like I said, just plucking a number out of thin air. Now, moving on from that, he also said that our little cough could be someone's death knell, which is a fucking incredible thing to say to people. Pass the buck onto the average working class Brit with a cold because you keep backtracking at the slightest hint of media outrage. Boris and the Wankstains riding him like Seabiscuit are forgetting that the flu has done the same thing for the last 50 years. Arrives in September, and those little coughs can be someone's death knell. You know, because the flu kills lots of people every year, yet we never got locked down for that before now, and we've never been blamed for the deaths of those who have died from it. I have got to say, Boris Johnson has lost a lot of support from people, not only for his authoritarian approach to this, but for literally becoming a Labour MP by blaming the British people for everything, the utter fucking scumbag. The sheer front of this silly blonde cunt doing that is really pissing me off. I put up with politicians' bullshit since it's what they do. I expect it, but standing in the Houses of Commons where the people put you, slagging them off, never sits well with me. And it especially doesn't when you are an incompetent fuckpig listening to other incompetent fuckpigs, despite, as we know, and is reported daily, Oxford Uni and countless others telling you not to listen to these idiots, who, you might all know, have got every single disease prediction wrong from mad cow disease to fucking swine flu. You might also remember that 500,000 should be dead in Sweden based on their calculations, if I remember right. Obviously, it didn't happen, and Sweden is actually doing better than us with none of this shit. Now, I've gone on a bit of a rant there, but as it stands, the new rules are not really that strict, but they have already softened us up to make them a lot stronger, which we know they will do. Boris Johnson will renew the Coronavirus Act in a couple of days, and these piss poor MPs will let him do it, and then this shit show will be going on for at least 6 more months. It's happening the same as it did in February and March, but without the we need to save the NHS bullshit. Since deaths are laughably low, the Office for National Statistics figures show. I mean, that is likely the reason we don't get shown them 30 times a day like we do cases that they claim are not because of an increased testing regime, which is clearly the height of stupidity and shows that Boris Johnson literally thinks we are all thick, much like Emily Thornberry does. If you test more, you find more. It's impossible not to be the case, obviously. So they are just pissing in our pockets and telling us it's raining on that one. Now, as I've pointed out, the 10 PM curfew is just ridiculous and also damaging the industry that the first lockdown almost destroyed, as is the hospitality sector changes despite the Tories pushing the eat out to help out in the same exact businesses. And then we get to the mask nonsense. I find it laughable they are still pushing this despite the fact it clearly does not work if the cases are going up like they say. These exact masks they're telling you to use explicitly state that they do not protect you from jack shit. Because if that mask will protect you from anything, then a condom would stop a woman getting pregnant if you stuck it over your dick. But I do have to say, I really feel sorry for the shop workers that happen to put up with this all day. Maybe Boris Johnson should spend a week working in a supermarket with a face mask on, sweating his arse off before telling other people to go and do it. These restrictions are all comically stupid, but they are going to lead on to much more. As I've said already, this is just a precursor to more stringent measures coming in. Now, there was also something rather important that he said, and I feel I should address it because it has been misconstrued by a great number of people. He said that the army are going to be drafted in, and people took that as they're going to be roaming the streets and they would be enforcing the laws of the government. This is obviously not the case. As I have said many times before, that is not going to happen. Boris lacks the authority to do it as far as I'm aware, and no soldier I know would ever act against the British people on any government's orders. I know a fair few in the infantry, and they have said as much to me. Actually, I am willing to bet they would rather storm Parliament before taking up arms against their own people. Some of the brass might try it, but the soldiers would never go for it, so you don't have to worry on that one. What Boris Johnson meant is that he's going to use the army to backfill the police, so he can use the police to crack down on us, because we know a lot of them these days don't mind being the government's enforcers. And all I will say to that is God help them when this is all over and the people remember what they did to them. So once again, we are stuck in this kind of limbo between freedom and lockdown, with the government acting on who knows what orders, because given the way Boris is acting, it does not seem to me like he is running the show at all. The guy at the moment is like an empty vessel in comparison to 6 months ago. His legacy is right up the shitter now though. Boris the next Winston Churchill, my arse. More like Neville Chamberlain, Theresa May and David Cameron rolled into one useless fuckpig, making him the undisputed shitweasel of the week.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors. Slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires. And that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. We're off.